Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll give folks a minute to hop on, and then we'll begin our webinar. Okay, I know more folks will probably join as we get started, but I want to ensure that we have enough time to get through the content today. So greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Go International preview, Marketing the Mission of Your Business. Inwanakisses tapokaswitis ka inwas nimipu, inamuniktwas Ciarra Greene. My name is Ciarra Greene, and I am a citizen of the Nez Perce tribe and currently serve as AIANTA's Visitor Outreach Manager. For those of you who are not familiar with AIANTA, for over 2 decades, AIANTA has served as the national voice for American Indians, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiians engaged in cultural tourism. In addition to serving as the voice for Indian country tourism, AIANTA provides technical assistance and training to tribal nations and Native-owned enterprises engaged in cultural tourism, hospitality, and recreation. One of the greatest tools for our outreach and promotion of tribal tourism is our destination website, nativeamerica.travel. If you are not listed on our website, please contact us so we can help you get your listing live on the website. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Please put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And I will kick off the webinar with some background information about the Visitor Outreach Program and Go International. And then I'll introduce our esteemed speaker, Stacia Morfin, to give us a preview of what we can expect at Go International from our dynamic speakers lined up. So as a reminder, the AIANTA mission is to define, introduce, grow, and sustain American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism that honors traditions and values. With the many and growing programs at AIANTA, we strive to continually advance our delivery of services to our members. Our Visitor Outreach Program provides the technical assistance and training through the American Indian Tourism Conference, Go International, webinars like this today, experiential trade show opportunities, engagement for nativeamerica.travel, familiarization tours, and media outreach. So a whole slew of services that we offer from the Visitor Outreach Program. And while I've been in this position for 7 fast-paced months, I'm learning from all of our members, our partners, and utilizing my skills in education to prepare and implement programming to further develop your business and promote your destinations and experiences to the domestic and international markets. The technical assistance AIANTA provides comes in many accessible forms to our members. Many of you attended our webinar in January, and if you missed it, you can access the recording for the Travel Trade Manual webinar. Sherry will drop that link in the chat for you. And that was a great intro to the Travel Trade Manual, but there's so much more in that document. So be sure to download that and spend some time to allocate, developing your business. I know a lot of us get busy in our planning and or get busy in our doing of the work, and maybe not so much in the planning of our business. So I really encourage you to set out some time each week, each quarter to dedicate the promotion of your business, continuing to build it up. And the Travel Trade Manual is a great place to start. Our Go International 2-day training, which this conference is getting us prepared for in less than a month. Go International will be held at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico on April 18th and 19th. You can see the registration fees here. Registration is now open and has been for a little bit, so make sure you're working with your staff to attend. This webinar, of course, is going to give us some insight into what to expect at Go International. So I'll provide some of that in a moment, but you can find more information on our website, and Sherry will pop that into the chat box for you as well. So we also do trade shows, and I mentioned that, and we just came back from Go West up in Anchorage, Alaska. We had a special registration rate for our members. We had 9 AIANTA members represented at Go West, and it was a dynamic and really productive set of meetings. It was one-on-one appointments there was over 100 suppliers there and over 100 buyers. And so each of our members were able to meet one-on-one with folks to pitch their product, but also talk about how can we begin to do business together. And so that's exactly the premise of Go International. How can we start getting our businesses, our tribal destinations and experiences on the global market? Let's go international. And so that was a great opportunity for our members at Go West to start those relationships or continue to build them. We also have IPW coming up in San Antonio, Texas. That's May 20th through the 24th. And for that this year, we established Tribal Row and extended it to 2 more booths. So we have some others joining us in Tribal Row, as well as 7 partners within the AIANTA booth, which means that we sold out this year in that opportunity. And this is a great, again, opportunity to meet one-on-one with folks who are in the international market, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Brazil. I mean, we met folks from all over the world last year, interested and highly motivated to begin doing business with all of you in the international market. So we want to continue to promote, bringing these international guests to Indian country. And the best way to do that is to make sure you're prepared. And so that is part of my job as a visitor outreach manager, is to continue to provide trainings like this webinar and Go International to make sure you're prepared for the international guests who are eager to visit you. Lastly, I just want to talk about Native America.travel. At travel trade shows, we promote Native America.travel, which is highly effective, again, at Go West in introducing the international market to the variety of Native experiences, attractions, and accommodations across the U.S. If you are not listed, please consider getting listed so we can promote you at upcoming travel trade shows. When we sit down with a meeting, folks say, oh, I'm interested in going to Idaho. We'll use Stacia as an example, Idaho. And so we'll zoom into Idaho and start seeing all the destinations, attractions, and accommodations in Idaho, and they begin to navigate and explore that and reach out to us to get those one-on-one relationships built with the tourism companies. We hosted a webinar last year to guide you through the process of Native America.travel. So Sherry, if you want to drop that link into the chat box, it's a great webinar and resource to get you going on that capacity. Bruce was very thorough in his explanation and getting you listed. Just this morning, I received an email from one of our Italian tour operators who is designing a fam trip across the Southwest and requested introductions to 11 destinations from Native America.travel to visit and consider for his itineraries. And it's free to list your destinations or accommodations. So please, again, make sure you're listed on there. That's how we're beginning to really push and promote all of our destinations of our AIANTA members. And if you're not listed, unfortunately, we can't pull you up when we're at these travel trade shows introducing Native America to the world. And one of my highlights is fam trips. And so, of course, we're all working hard in the tourism industry, but fortunately for us, we've been able to partner with Brand USA to host fam trips. There were 3 prior to the pandemic that were planned in the Northwest, the Southwest, and the Midwest. And we have 2 planned for this year. So we did complete the Southern California fam February 5th through the 9th. We had 17 destinations and experiences in working with 4 tribes. We had tour operators from France, Germany, and Spain, and even media coverage from Indie Country Today. And so if you have the opportunity to participate in a fam tour, I highly encourage you to take advantage of offering those complimentary services to get this, to get the exposure that you can receive from providing these tour operators insight into your destination and experience. In May, pre-IPW, we'll be heading up to Alaska for the Southeast Alaska fam tour. And we have 20 planned destinations and experiences, again, working with 4 Alaska Native tribes. So in 2024, it's to be announced or to be determined. So if you think you have a great itinerary across multiple avenues, looking for 20 or so planned destinations, reach out to us, continue to build up your capacity to invite international visitors to your destinations. And again, this is so much part of my job in making sure you're all prepared for those international guests to arrive on site. So participating in webinars like this, the Go International training conference coming up. Those are great opportunities to let us know that you are ready and able to have us add you on one of our FAM tours. So you can see on this diagram, the international travel market showed an increase in year-over-year appetite for Indian country tourism experiences, of course, pre-pandemic. As expected, we all saw and felt the impacts of the pandemic in 2020, but at our recent meetings at IPW in 2022, at Go West, Brand USA Travel Week in Frankfurt, Germany, those were promising as we heard interest in travel to native destinations and experiences is still alive and thriving. And so as we see numbers pick back up, we do expect to recover and exceed pre-COVID numbers of visitation to our tribal communities. So real quick, I want to launch a poll and see how many of you have international visitors currently. So I'll launch that and give you a second to fill that out. How many of you have international visitors at your destination experience? And if you want, you can pop into the chat, where are they primarily from? And it's really important for us as we work with various entities in the U.S. government, the U.S. Commercial Services, International Trade Association, Inbound International Trade Association, Brand USA, to garner data to see where is it that visitors who are coming to Indian country, where are they coming from? So we can really target those markets as well as the interest. And so if you have a high influx of folks, say from Germany, let us know that so we can start targeting that market for not only you, but our greater AIANTA membership. Okay, so I'm going to close out this poll just for time's sake. And it looks like some of you have a few international visitors and half of our visitors are international. So 50-50 there. And that's great to see that we do have some international visitors coming into your destinations and experiences. We want to make sure that we continue to build up our capacity in Indian country to invite more of those visitors. And what we've seen in previous studies is that international guests do spend more than our domestic guests. So, we really want to make sure that not only are they coming to our single destination or attraction, but that they're staying in our communities and really helping us with our economy. Okay, so one last question, and those who are on our January webinar have already seen this and are familiar with it, but I think it's a really great opportunity to stop and reflect. So borrowing from the Canadian RISE National Guideline for Authentic Indigenous Tourism Experiences, let's pause and think about where each of you are in their categorized 3 ways to be market ready. Are you business ready, visitor ready, or export ready? So I'm going to launch this poll just to see where folks are. And business ready means you enable new startups, or these are business ready enables new startups, entrepreneurs, and others just entering the market to get recognized for meeting good business practices. Most businesses in this category tend to focus on local markets. The visitor ready is for tourism businesses that are seeking to attract visitors beyond local markets. These businesses may be expanding and increasing their capacity, such as serving larger groups or extending their operational season. Generally, these businesses are mature, having operated for a minimum of 2 to 3 years, and they have well-established operational policies and procedures that enable the business to grow and manage more risk. And lastly, export ready, which is all of our goal. Export ready businesses are focused on international visitor markets and have the added capacity to manage specialized travel trade services for visitors from a broad range of culturally diverse markets. Export ready businesses are part of the larger travel trade ecosystem. To be successful, most rely on business relationships with tour operators, DMOs, and various travel distribution networks. So good, we got a good span of folks in here. I'm going to end the poll just to see where everybody is at. So this is great. We have everybody across the board, business ready, visitor ready, almost export ready, and export ready. So no matter where you're at in the scale of preparedness for export ready, that is exactly why we offer trainings like this webinar and Go International, because whether you're thinking about getting into the international market or you're already succeeding in the international market, We can all learn and continue to build on the ever-changing international market that we strive to be in. So let's talk a little bit about Go International. This is the preview. What are we going to expect at Go International this year? You may have attended Go International in the past, and of course, we're always updating our programming and making sure that it's relevant to today's market. And coming out of a pandemic, of course, the market is a little bit different than it was going into the pandemic. So we're going to kick off Go International with Sherry Rupert, Skylar Clark, and Indy Vallejos, fulfilling the international desire for Indigenous destinations and experiences. And this session is going to talk about creating a deluxe itinerary for groups, may mean adding exclusive experiences, such as passes to a powwow or an evening with tribal elders. In this session, CEO Rupert discusses the many ways Indigenous communities can share their culture with visitors by building better packages. The next session will be trade show from start to finish. So you may have been to a trade show before, and I'll tell you what, technology is changing the way that we do things at conferences, at trade shows. So just be prepared to continue to advance your technological offerings at these trade shows. So this conference session is designed to help attendees prepare for and make the most of their trade show experience. For first timers to seasoned professionals, we will review pre-show, show, and post-show tasks to ensure a successful experience. We'll discuss important topics such as selecting and scheduling appointments, or what I like to call matchmaking, booth planning and outreach materials and methods. So considering language differences is something that we really need to step up to the plate on. On-site navigation and record keeping, and the most important thing, following up. Securing those buys and online booking software. Are you prepared for those international purchases? Tips and best practices from experienced trade show goers will be shared throughout the session, and attendees will have the opportunity to ask questions and engage in conversation about their own unique experiences. So for that session, we'll have Dee Dee McGowan and Charles Meeks. The next session is elevating your destination or experience with culture and creative methods of communication and consistency. We'll have Tiana Yellowhair and Elizabeth Walsh on this session. And as cultural tourism continues to increase in popularity, the international travel landscape is also seeing the rise of a phenomena called the experience economy. International visitors to the United States have nearly countless experiential opportunities, but few offer as rich as an experience as visiting an Indigenous community. This session helps you identify unique cultural components to elevate your destination experience, including creative methods of communication to be expressive beyond language and maintain consistency in your tours throughout the season. So we have noted that language is sometimes a barrier for our international guests, and how can we overcome that? By being vibrant, sharing our song, our dance, our stories, and also some of our language. The next session, developing visitor guides and toolkits. Malia Sanders, I'm really excited about this session because a lot of what I've seen in training for our tribal tourism businesses, our AIANTA membership, is how to, I don't want to say cater to the international market, but how to be part of the international market. And this session flips it backwards. How does the international market need to come appropriately to our communities? And so how to develop a visitor guide based on cultural values, care for the land and community, what visitors should know before they come, and how to incorporate these all into aspects of cultural tourism. Consider how to honor the integrity of culture in communications and resources for visitors prior to, during, and after their visit. I'm really excited about that session with Malia. On day 2, we will get in. We do have a special session to be announced, so hang tight for that. I encourage you to, of course, register for Go International because you won't want to miss out on that session that we're going to have a special announcement at a later date. But the session after that will be developing your export and marketing plan. This will be an interactive workshop with Monica Poling and Kate Anderson. This presentation will explore how to create a 1 to 3 year plan to boost global sales and effectively market a Native community's destination and experience. A developed export plan increases your success in landing contracts with the international travel trade. Additionally, we'll go over how to create and implement a solid marketing and media relations plan, which includes a strategy of list building, website updates, social media postings, and more. We will discuss ways to create a timely story about visitor experiences, which can help elevate your destination and lead to increased visitation and revenue. By the end of the session, attendees will have the tools and resources they need to create a plan to promote their own destination and experience. And our last two sessions, of course, we will have Stacia Morfin giving a session to define, promote, and grow your operation using a one sheet. So this is something she'll talk about today. So I'm not going to go too much into that session since she'll be giving us a preview of that. And then our last session, I'm excited about this as well. We all have smartphones probably in our hand, in our lap, right on our desk, right at this moment. And so creating videos to market your destination experience with Edsel Pete of Navajo Nation TV and Film. Yes. This is going to help us, while using high quality images, capture the essence of your destination experience with video that can drive visitor decisions by simply being interested in your product to actually booking and even creating and sharing their own content while at your destination. Videos can express your brand and differentiate you between any competitors. It can evoke emotion and offer a firsthand perspective of the destination that they will come visit. While high-cost productions are available, simple videos can be produced right from the palm of your hand and create a memorable moment that captures the attention of potential visitors, increasing their retention of the message by 85%. This session will offer techniques and templates to drive your video production and grow your brand and destination and experience. So as you can see, we have a phenomenal lineup of sessions and speakers to guide you through our Go International 2-day training. If you would please register and attend, I would love to see you all prepared for the international market, wherever you may be in the spectrum of market ready, business ready, market ready, and export ready. We want to get you out to the international market. So without further ado, I want to invite our speaker, Stacia Morfin, to present what is at the foundation of all of our businesses, or should be, and often very unique in cultural tourism, your mission. So Stacia Morfin is the CEO of Perce Tourism, a Native woman business located in the Pacific Northwest with headquarters in Idaho at the confluence of the Clearwater and Snake Rivers. She is also Nimipu, a citizen of the Nez Perce tribe, and has an associate degree in hospitality management and a bachelor's degree in business administration from Lewis Clark State College. The AIANTA Award for Best Cultural Heritage Experience was presented to Nez Perce Tourism in 2021. The Cultural Heritage Enterprise offers authentic experiences from the Nimipu perspective through jet boat tours, Appaloosa horseback rides, and other cultural immersive experiences across their homelands. Nez Perce Tourism has also been featured in leading publications such as the New York Times and Washington Post. And so without further ado, Stacia, take it away.
Yay, Marcus Katsigalia, sister. Inem wanik was kusnim kasknuat, so yapa wanik was Stacia Morfin, tots ein. I feel so happy to be here today with you all. Some of the folks I do recognize on the participants list. So hello, family. Relatives, I wanted to share with you where I am at right now. I'm actually in Washington, D.C. with an organization called Inter-American Foundation, the IAF. And if anybody knows another tribal woman, her name is Jessa Red Thunder, and she is a phenomenal artist, and she's really putting together this pilot project to bring together what is known as, South American and North American, or the United States artists and women entrepreneurs. And during the intro, Ciarra explained that we are a Native woman-owned business, and how important that is in today's society. Native-owned, period, right? Native woman-owned, even more powerful, because in some countries such as Mexico, the women's voice is very much silenced. And so I'm sitting in conference rooms yesterday, today, and tomorrow with beautiful artisans, beautiful Mexican artisans. And what's beautiful about that, when we look at the language, is they only speak their tribal language, only. a little bit of Spanish. So our translation is from the original tribal language to Spanish to English. But it's so beautiful because as they applaud us, I brought along Michaela Thompson and their Nimipu and Lydia Scahan as my two artists as delegates to join me on this trip. You know, these ladies from our brothers, our Southern sisters are like, you are so empowering to know that you have a voice, that you're very proud, that you're sharing your culture, parts of it, and we'll get into that a little bit. But I'm just so thankful to be here in DC with these ladies, to be here with you all today as we continue to move forward, because Indigenous representation matters. You know, marketing the mission of your business matters. And I absolutely love that we're able to come here together with our brothers, sisters, you know, north, south, east, and west, our relations, and we can connect on a level that's extremely important. Next slide, please. So Indigenous representation matters. That is so important to be able to look at. Next slide, please. What we're doing within our communities, within our tribes, and to make sure that we're doing it respectfully and adequately. So before I started Nez Perce Tourism, I did 2 years of market research. And I found that through my market research that within my region, there were 164 tourism-related businesses sharing the story of my people, all from the colonial point of view, right? So when we say Indigenous representation matters, Nez Perce representation matters. So what we try to do is we try to develop logic models to ensure that not only the Namipu are sharing our story, but every other tribal entrepreneur or tribal person or tribal enterprise also has the skills and the model concept to be able to share their own stories. And one of the things that I did, next slide. Ciarra, can you hear me? Next slide, please. So this photograph that you see there was actually during our opening ceremony, and that happened March of 2018. So what we did with the Nez Perce Tourism is we had about a solid 8 months to be able to be in operation, and we hit the ground running. You know, we waited. We didn't start something right away. Everything that we do is very much spirit led. Even the inception of how Nez Perce Tourism was created is something that is very, very important and near and dear to my heart as far as the spiritual journey that I took to be able to receive this message. And that is something that is even sacred in itself. And so just know that, you know, this tourism concept is not something that I thought of. It's something that I prayed for and went on a spiritual journey. And that's the message that I received, that I was going to start a business in cultural preservation. So me, I came from the marketing industry and a very prestigious consultant for Pacific Empire. It was a marketing mecca in Lewiston, Idaho, and was doing very well financially, but I felt like there was something missing. There was something more that I was supposed to be doing. So I went on this journey, and I won't explain where and how that process went, but it's very important to our people that we continue those ways, right? Similar with some of your customs and your norms, and making sure you're connected to the spirit world. And so I said, okay, cultural preservation. I came off the mountain and I went into the Small Business Development Center in my local community. You may or may not have an SBDC near you, especially for those who are kind of just maybe getting started. But make sure that you have a business model set up. Make sure you have a strategic plan, have identified who your collaborators are going to be, get into who your market segments may be through market research, and we'll get into that in a moment. But I thought that was really powerful. And so here I thought I was going to be starting a nonprofit organization, you know, on my own time, on my free time in cultural preservation. Through the research that I conducted, I was able to see that there is a big lucrative industry for tourism in my specific area. And so before I get into that, I also wanted to touch base on these images. And so Some of the things that my parents have always told me is remember who you are each day. And that is very, very important as we come into different obstacles, whether it's professional, whether it's educational, whether it's personal, whether it's spiritual, right? We come into so many different fluid situations that are often changing every single day. But looking back and remembering who you are each day is very important. Also, my dad, Solo Greene, always told me is that how do you know where you're going if you don't know who you are? And I always thought that was so important for me as an adult now to always look back at that is you don't have a plan for your life if you don't know exactly who it is and exactly where you come from. And that's why I wanted to point out this woman on my left. Her name is Lizzie Cayuse. In 1901, this picture was taken, and she was sent on delegation with Chief Joseph, which at the time of 1877 era, he was the spokesperson for the Namipu people, especially during the flight of 1877. So in 1901, what happens is the Namipu people, the congregation got together and they wanted to put together a very fierce group of people who were able to speak on behalf of our tribe, right? So they sent a woman, a spokesperson of our people, and that was Lizzie Cayuse. That was our relative, Ciarra and I. But if you look at the parallel of time and what was happening in present day United States at that time, again, I said 1901. So 1901 to 1912, there was something happening in United States for women, and it was called the women's suffrage movement. And what that means is the women were really fighting for their voice and looking for equality as far as voting, right? That's something that was happening for over 10 years in that time period. But we look back at our matriarch societies as Indigenous Native people, specifically the Namipu. That is very, very important that we know while the parallel of what's happening inside United States at this time, don't forget, we're also sending our most valued spokespeople, which happens to be a woman and happens to be from my family. Not only do I know information about this side of my family, which is my grandfather's side, I know exactly where their ancient village sites are located because we visit them. It's called Kayanma, place of the red-tailed hawk. So looking at remembering who you are each day is not just identifying, what tribal entity you are. It's identifying who you come from as far as your ancestry, trying to learn as much as you can from both sides of your family. Even if you have one parent who is tribal, you're going to have at least two sides because they have tribal mother and father, right? So what I tried to always make sure is that we talk about Kayanma, place of the red-tailed hawk, and where this ancient village site is located. That is very important. Also, on my grandmother's side, we come from a very, very powerful Namipu spiritual leader, and his name was Pile of Clouds. I know exactly where his ancient village site was located. The powers that he had were so intense and connected to the land that he could change the weather. He could change the weather based upon his connection with our landscape. And he did utilize his gifts in time of need. He made sure that during the flight of 1877, which was a flight for our lives against the United States government, a time in history when we were going to war over our land. And it wasn't, warriors versus soldiers or combatants versus combatants. It was families fleeing for their lives. And that's a whole separate heartache of history that we understand, but that's also creates the responsibility of being resilient and carrying that with you forth. So as much of the traumas that we have faced, there's also an equal side of the resiliency that we carry. But understanding who it is that I come from is very, very important as I navigate through something as very, very important as tourism. Next slide. Tourism is such a big responsibility. Go and hit the tab a couple of times so the rest of the content will drop. Thank you. So this slide is a picture of me at a place called Illicut Putpa, place where the light touches the earth. So I try to utilize as much of our traditional language as possible, especially in my nation. I know others such as Dene, their language is very strong, and I applaud that. And I'm so grateful for that every time I hear it, because our language is so powerful to our connection to place. But Illicut Putpa, place where the light touches the earth, is a place where one of our jet boat tours drop into. And it's a place where it's a place of prayer. And what we try to do is make sure that our guests understand not only that they're going to get authenticity, that this isn't a commercialized trip. You get on, you sign in, and you get off. It's a very much important personal connection, not only to each other as guides, but also a very important connection to their experience on the landscapes within the 8,000-year-old petroglyphs that live at this place called Buffalo Eddy, messages that our ancestors left for us as travelers, as visitors. And one of the things that we decide to do when we explain this beautiful site and this beautiful model and this beautiful trade route and a very spiritual location is we don't depict what these petroglyphs say, right? The carvings in the rocks, we don't depict what they say. We offer them to have a moment with them and ask, what are these messages sharing with you as an individual guest? One of my most favorite things that we do at the end of this particular trip, our jet boat tour, is we offer a reflection session at the very end. And everybody gets an opportunity to share a word, a phrase, as long as they want, they can share on the mic, something that they enjoyed about this trip. And sometimes I am so thankful for the response that we get from our tribal people, from our community, from our international folks. It's a very transformational trip. And that's what we want. We want people to start thinking about original tribal knowledge. We want people to start thinking about cultural values and how to apply these values to their own life as they move from these places, as they go from these places. So the mission of Nez Perce Tourism is strengthening our Namipu cultural identity, connection to place, and sharing our personal narratives to connect guests to Namipu culture and homelands. So you notice in that very first call to action, it isn't how many Soyapos, as we say, or non-tribal people can we bring to our homelands to share about who we are. Our very first action item is cultural identity. That means, how do we strengthen the ability of sense of belonging within our own people? How do we do that? What does that look like? And that is very important as we get into the next slide here in a few moments about the 3 pillars of our foundation and our organization. So since time immemorial and into the future, tribal nations occupy what is known today. Of course, we all know this, right? North and South America. We know this. How do we convey this, which is an important legacy message to leave an imprint upon our guests in a way that comes from a place of healing, that comes from language that they can comprehend? Because a lot of these people, even since time immemorial into the future, tribal nations occupy what is known today as North and South America. How do you decolonize our guest's mind to say that no matter where you travel in present-day United States, you're on native land? How do you apply this concept for them to be able to understand? Sometimes it may be repetitive, sometimes it may be in a legend, sometimes it may be an origin story. Whatever that is, that's something that I think is very important for them to understand. And then what are the action items for them to be able to continue supporting Native communities? One, they've already booked a tour with you. So that's very, very important, because there may be other people within your industry or within your region that offer the same thing, but they chose to support Native. And I absolutely love being a part of that. So Nez Perce Tourism is 100% Native women owned. As I said earlier, we're categorized as a LLC, established in 2018, received an AA certification in 2020. So that's something that is very important. So as I said, COVID hit about 8 months after we started our operation, right? And this is something to know. And even for yourself, if you are in operation during this time. So just look back at the tourism industry in general, right? So when I look at who I am, I know that we've been offering tours for a very, very long time with neighboring tribes, with neighboring guests, with, of course, Lewis and Clark, settlement, all of these things. Our people have always been very hospitable and very beautiful and very much connected to the land to offer guidance as people navigate through our homelands, right? But what happened during COVID is that the whole world shut down, obviously. There were tourism-related businesses in operation for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And those operations were closing their doors for good. So the fact that we are here in this session today and we're looking to grow and expand is something that we need to be proud of, because we are still here. Maybe we are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 10 years old. But the thing is these very established tourism related businesses had to close their doors for good from a hiccup that may have lasted 1-2 years. And the fact that we're still here in this space at this time says something about who we are. And I love being able to be part of tourism at this level. So also when we look at 8A government contracting, so on our 2-year birthday, when we established our LLC and our EIN, as far as you're 2 years in, you do have the right to be able to apply for government contracting. And what that is if you apply and you are accepted, that it's basically a handshake with the United States government that you are an entity who is certified to do business with them. The United States government is probably the largest, most wealthiest client you'll ever have. So to make sure that you look into what this might be, perhaps it is tourism, perhaps it's interpretation, perhaps it's marketing, perhaps whatever it is that you are good at, or your tribe is good at, or your people are good at, or your family is good at, you can utilize that AA status to be able to tie in what they're called NAICS codes. Like I said, it could be interpretation, marketing. I mean, all of these things, there's NAICS codes for it, and you can determine that. So that's something I highly recommend more people look into, is the AA certification. So we were recognized as a respected leader in preserving our culture, identity, and traditions while simultaneously creating jobs. Workforce development is huge. Projects that spur the local economy and protect our sacred sites. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the 3 pillars of Nez Perce tourism, and these are very, very important to us. The first pillar, I noticed that I mentioned that we focus on cultural identity within our own people. First and foremost, before tours begin, before people are invited into our homelands, we want to make sure that we're reaching our youth, that we're creating authentic one-on-one elder to mentor youth mentorship opportunities, so our people can learn about who they are and where they come from. Because honestly, with forceful removal, with colonization, the Dawes Act, boarding school era, we know what that history is, and we also know how devastating that history was for our people. So to be able to look in the mirror today and say, okay, this is who I am and exactly where I come from, and to really be proud of that, and to understand that that is so important to your destiny, so important to this industry, is something that we believe within our foundation, cultural identity. It's the culture and the values, beliefs, thinking patterns, and behaviors that are learned and shared that is characteristic of a group or people, right? All of us 576 federally recognized tribe, and the tribes that aren't recognized. We all have our own languages. We all have our own experiences. We all have our own legends. We all have our own ceremonies. And that is really beautiful. So it serves to give us identity to a group, ensures survival, and enhances the feeling of belonging. We want our people to have a good feeling when they look in the mirror and say, Stacia, I'm Namipu. And to really feel that you're proud of that. Not in a way of a boastful spirit, but in a way of, we are still here. What is it that I'm supposed to carry on with me that my ancestors would be praying for, generations ahead? What's our legacy? So land back, land reclamation, right? Loss of land, I briefly touched on it earlier. I won't get into detail on that whole situation, but we all know that land reclamation, not only calling out our place names, connecting our people, our Namipu people, our young and old people back to some of our original places, that's what's important to us, that connection to our land. Also land back, working with our federal allies, private owners, and saying, what would it look like if you gave the land back to the people? What would that look like? People don't understand when you look at tourism, and your community may think, oh gosh, they're putting on a show. They're just trying to, set up shop and get money for whatever it is that they do. Not only do they know all of the internal factors that go in that impact our community, cultural identity, land reclamation, land back, that is so important. So returning people back to their homelands and finding their place in the ecosystem of life. That's another internal concept. So both of these things, when we look at tourism, our company are both internal. The third one is education, the process of acquiring, sharing knowledge and skills through a cultural lens. That is so important, and education can hit so many different faucets. Next slide, please. If you guys have any questions at any time, please feel free to leave it in the chat, and anybody can jump in at any time. So I'm just going to go through this one really quickly. These last few years, I mean, we were just started in operation again, like I said, Inspiring Women of YWCA 2021. I often gave presentations on culture, diversity, equity, inclusion, sharing my own personal testimony, entrepreneurship journey, all kinds of different things as far as women not being invited to these spaces, specifically a Native woman. So I basically created my own table and invited people to it that I thought were important. And that's a whole flip to a colonial concept as far as egalitarianism, you know, looking at a circular leadership perspective rather than a hierarchy. That is something that we think is very, very important, is making sure that I know that I can always be a continual learner from Ciarra, and Ciarra with me, and Sherry with each other. You know, we're all at an equal playing ground. Nobody is, you know, higher than the other. We're all here to learn together in the circular point of view. So Inspiring Women YWCA 40 under 40 with NCAID, that was really important for me because this is specific to tribal people. And I was like, I'm 38 years old. If I don't get it now, I don't think I ever will. So I was nominated, and I was very, very excited and happy to be able to receive this national award, Best Cultural Heritage Experience Award with AIANTA in 2021. And that was a really big surprise. And that just really helped, you know, kind of quantify and give me the reassurance that this is exactly where you need to be. To receive this award is a big deal. So congratulations to the recipients before me and also after me. There is a process in which you can nominate somebody. So I highly recommend you know, looking at that. I don't know if it's due soon or if it's due next year, but look into that as you experience, you know, Indian country and other folks that you learn and grow from, and see if that's something that you can nominate. I think that would be great. Also, a Distinguished Preservationist Orchid Award. That's a Lewiston Historic Preservation Commission. So this one is a very male, white dominated group of people that I was very happy to be able to offer liaison work, interpretation, representation. You know, Native representation matters. That's very, very important. And so, you know what, when you come and you come correct, and you come from a place of healing, there is no denying the fact that you need to be there. And that's exactly what we do through this industry. It's so much more, like I said, than bringing in a group of people and saying, okay, next, thank you for your money, peace out. There's so much internal work that happens in this industry that I'm actually in love. And there's so much work to be done. Next slide. So this is something that we created, and some of you may have done this, or maybe you haven't, but sometimes I mentioned earlier, you know, the community buy-in may be a little bit tricky to walk through, right? You know, some people, you know, I don't want people here, I don't want people there, you're putting on a show, that's a sacred site, you know, whatever that might be. Very valid. We want to make sure that we have our community buy-in and our community support. I think that is very important, especially in the cultural value of discipline. We want to make sure we aren't disrespecting our community, our families, our people. And so we look at 4 different categories and in this internal analysis, and you can kind of categorize it if you feel like using this in the future. But we had what is sacred, secret, commonly known, and widely shared. So sacred, of course, is protected place and knowledge within our people and community that we keep within our community and our families. Secret is not known or seen, and not meant to be known or seen by others. Also very secret, specifically to our people, and you have those places too within your communities. Commonly known, what are the Nimipu universally known for? Chief Joseph, Appaloosa Horse, Lewis and Clark Expedition. Kind of the information, if you needed to find on Google, perhaps you could, maybe thrown into different curriculums every once in a while. And then widely known, what is frequently discussed publicly while referencing the Nimipu. Next slide. Could also be known as the Nasoch, or salmon. We have a very big connection to, of course, our water systems, as well as our Nasoch, or salmon. They're very important to us still today. So identifying target markets, this is something that is very important for us as Native tourism companies, looking at the domestic traveler. What does that look like locally, regionally, within the United States? That's the domestic traveler. For us, in our market research, we found that there's a large cruise boat industry. Perhaps you have water systems around where you live, and you do have American Cruise Line Steamboat Company, maybe around the Mississippi River. I know that they also do a Mississippi to New Orleans trip. And so if you're on that stretch, call and get a hold of these people, or get a hold of me. I have really good connections with these folks, so we can get your authentic experience on their itinerary. Our voices need to be heard as guests in the thousands. We have 30,000 individual passengers from the cruise line company that come to our region, to our place, and they want to know more about who we are. So that's something I want to plug you into with all of my heart. Our voices need to be at that seat and at that table. And there's lots of people, and it's a really good money. So I can help you walk you through even the contractual, what that might look like. And maybe sometimes pricing is, man, that seems too high, or man, that seems too low. How do we quantify what that might look like? Let's make sure that we also add in not only the logistical, how much is a room space, how much is the time, how much, but we actually add in the traditional ecological knowledge that is embedded into our minds from the years of knowledge that our ancestors have passed down. That is invaluable. And so we want to make sure that we are charging enough, not too much, but just enough. But we want to make sure that we aren't being disrespected in the things that we offer. So even in contractual basis, sometimes there are a large quantity as far as how many tours come through. Let's never make sure that we undercut ourselves as far as those offerings, even within our travel writers and our tour operators, which are very important. We'll get into that as well. Local community is huge for us. We want to make sure that we offer workshops within our own people at no cost to ensure that, before we do, maybe we don't, a bead workshop for some travelers. Maybe it's a he, she, shell necklace making workshop with Michael Wilson. He's a very well-known artists in our community, but we want to make sure that we're also offering this as no cost to our community first before we start sharing this knowledge and information with others outside our community. International guests, that's something that we're kind of focusing on today, and that's really, really important, because as we look at seeing the international, the export import opening back up, we want to make sure that we're ready and that we have them here. Because if we look at the past, and Ciarra showed a slide on that earlier, those numbers, you guys, are going to recover so well and so quickly that we need to get together as a Native community within the tourism industry. We need to create some itineraries. We can say, looking at, go ahead, next slide real quick. So I know we're running out of time. I had a couple videos and things in there, but I'm going to go ahead and pass them because I know I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So looking at the tourism industry, one of the biggest things that I found is if you remember that picture earlier, I had my eagle fan in the air and I was at Ilocutputpa, and I had my 200-year-old buckskin dress on and my 100-year-old beaded bag and 100-year Liscow, the basket hat. And we had a lot of our guests, Stacia, can I buy your earrings? The earrings that are your family's floral pattern from trade beads, can I buy that? Can I buy your cups? Can I buy your fan? You're not legally able to own eagle feathers, so no, you cannot buy my fan. But just really, really wanting to take something home with them from that very authentic experience they just had with you and your people. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, we absolutely need to come up with something to be able to offer material culture to our guests, right? And so that's another thing that we decided to do during COVID is we pivoted, because we were only open for 8 months, right? So we pivoted and we opened up a brick and mortar in downtown Lewiston, where a lot of these people go and they stay. So we opened up a gift shop, and the mission is to preserve, promote, and perpetuate tribal material culture in a respectful way through ancient and modern trade routes. So those cruise line industry folks, that river cruise boat that they take is 7 to 10 days long. They go over to the Pacific Ocean and they end right at our homelands, right where our operation lives. So we know that there is a big industry, but we also know that those same ancient trade routes is the same routes that these very shells came from. That these he-she shells, these mother of pearl shells, the things that we have is the thousands of years of trade and commerce that have been happening through our river systems, through our homelands. The Namipu are the most powerful and the most prominent people because where we're generally located geographically, We had our rivers there, and that's how everything, there wasn't a buffalo robe, there wasn't a Dantillion shell, there wasn't a piece of copper, there wasn't a bead that didn't pass through our homelands without our approval because of where we're located with the river systems. But this is very, very important to us to apply what your mission is. You know, don't just come up with something, oh yeah, that sounds good. That's okay, I guess. But we want to make sure that your mission is applicable to each of the tours you offer, but not only that, to the trainings you offer internally, what you provide and give back to your community through the form of sponsorships, workshops, whatever that might look like. What you have in your mission, you want to ensure that you're actually doing it within your organization. You know, one of the things that we just started doing, next slide, last week is with our gift shop employees and our executive team, is we want to make sure that as the CEO or owner, I'm a circular learner, right? We're all together. That's why sometimes I get a little bit mixed up about the titles. But the thing is that we have one-on-one meetings and we talk about, what is your personal goal? What is your professional goal? What is your spiritual goal? We want to make sure that those three things are so in alignment with each other as brothers and sisters within our organization. And how are we exuding what we say we want to do with our goals into our community? How are we making that impact? Because the more we come together through education, tourism, cultural identity, land reclamation, land back, the more prominent that we'll be able to come as a whole people. So just real quick, this is something that I'm actually going to be able to offer as far as a step-by-step guide at Go International next month. But this is Visit Namipu Nez Perce Tours. This is a one sheet that is very important for when we try to obtain the domestic or international buys. This specific one sheet can be found on my website. My website and this one sheet can be translated into 13 different languages. So when we focus on international guests and we want to make sure that we're going to be prepared and equipped to be able to answer questions, we also want to make sure that they have this accessible information at the tip of their hands, you know, through the website or through emails, right? So we want to make sure this is available. But we also try to make sure that we have as much as our language, as much of the high res photos as possible. That's why I was really excited earlier that Ciarra was actually going to be obtaining some video content. And video content is something that, you know, being in operation for the first couple of years, it was hard for us to come by. I mean, we didn't have a big budget to be able to hire a native business to come and do our video content for us. We did have a few very great volunteers offer their expertise and tribal entrepreneurs to be able to offer some no-cost expertise for some drone work, which we'll be able to launch very soon. We're excited about. Then we just recently did a collaboration with the state of Idaho. So when we look at your market segments aren't just looking at the domestic, international, institutional, educational, working with schools, working with organizations, but it also is looking at working with your local DMOs, your destination marketing organizations. We have two in my region, Visit LC Valley and Visit North Central Idaho Travel Association. We have a state DMO. Of course, you heard about Brand USA earlier. That's kind of our national DMO. But I really do think that someday very soon that AIANTA will become our kind of our native DMO for Indian country. That's something that I would love to see, and that would be very, very important for us to have. But the thing is the one sheets are very, very impactful, very important. High resolution photos are something that are absolutely necessary to be able to promote your product and who you are. Being able to share a story in as few words as possible, making sure that you actually have your QR codes are always huge. But when we're looking at the international audience, probably the second most important thing besides pictures is going to be to provide a map. And this map is on the second page, on the back page. And that makes sure that you identify where are the regional airports for wherever you're geographically located. But even more importantly for our international audience, where are your international airports located? So if you look at the screen, you'll know that Lewiston is where we're located in North Central Idaho. And then you also, and that's a regional airport. And then you also see Seattle. So for me, doing my research, I know that internationally, that probably the Seattle to Salt Lake, That's a whole existing itinerary that happens in the fly drive market. Whether you're an FIT, individual travel, families traveling together, or you're a group on motor coach, right? Large groups of 40 to 180 people. Those are motor coach groups. So knowing that there's already pre-existing itineraries that already go from Seattle to Salt Lake. Maybe it's stopping by the national parks. Maybe it's whatever that might consist of, winery tours or brewery tours or landscape photography tours. Know that they're already going very much close to what I have to offer. So why not be able to actually insert my offerings into their existing itinerary? You don't have to change much, something that would be completely different. We look at our international audience and we know that they come to the United States every year. Every year, if you've come for 5 times, you've done Washington, D.C. You already did Vegas. You did LA. You did New York. You did all the national parks, right? So you want to create something that is authentic, something that connects people to the land, something that will be transformational. And that's what we can do as authentic tribal tourism. As these are the impact, the things that we can have on our communities within, and then also to be able to share that story from our own people. I'll wrap up here. Go ahead, next slide. One of the best things about I think who we are as a people is that we do get to share our own story, and that is very, very important. But not only that, when we look at our international audience, they come already like geared up with some of the knowledge. Like when we have our regional and our local people, it's like decolonizing, like trying to make them understand even what, some of the important things that we would think people would know. The international audience is so much more equipped on research in understanding some of the real history about us as Native people in general. And that I think is really important. And they're very, very respectful. And so I love looking at our international audience, looking at ways to be able to say, hey, we're back in operation. We would love for you to come and see us, and to be able to have that cross-cultural exchange. And so, when we have our tours, sometimes we end up learning from, our audience or our customers, and that's great. I love those cultural exchanges. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end today with a quote. So now is the time and you can insert your name, your tribal name, or your business name in here. Share our story with cultural integrity at the forefront. I am proud to say that tourism is nothing new to our nation. Insert your nation there. Historically, and from this day forward, people will be reminded that we have always and will be known for our vast connection to the land in which we originated from. Guiding and tourism is nothing new to our people. It's deeply embedded in our DNA. So that is very important to think, is that sometimes within your communities, people may say, what is this thing you're trying to do now? This does not make any sense. And believe me, my mentors, every single one of them, when I pitched this idea to them about I'm going to start a tourism business, nobody knew I did market research for 2 years. Nobody had a clue what I was up to middle of the night, working on this business model, this concept, this plan. When I pitched it to my closest friends, families, and mentors, they're like, you're going to quit your job and do this? I'm like, absolutely. I don't recommend it. How are you gonna get the funding, all this stuff? And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So now those same mentors are like, wait, I can't believe you actually did it. How can we better support you? What did we do? How can we have you elevate your story and share with others? So, when you're given that unique message that I got, remember I was talking about that spiritual journey that I went on. There isn't any obstacle that's going to come in your way that is going to allow you to stop what your destiny is in life, as long as you continue to move forward with it. Tourism is so huge. It's deeply embedded into who we are as a people. But not only is it a big responsibility, and we need to make sure we foster that through our cultural values within our own nations. So I hope and I pray that every single person on this webinar today was at least able to take something home with them. If you have any questions for me personally, please reach out. AIANTA is also a great resource to be able to offer, future workshops and things. But I will be at Go West as well to really go into and walk through that one sheet and how imperative it really is to reach your demographic. Thank you.
Katsiaya, Kusnim Kasnawat. Thank you, Stacia. At this time, we welcome any questions and comments. I know we're a tad bit over time, but either way, Stacia and I are here for a couple more minutes to field anything that you may want to share or say. And I'm just so fortunate to be able to firsthand witness the blossoming of Nez Perce tourism.
Yay, my sister was my number one supporter all of these days, and still, one of the things I wanted to get into more, maybe on a different webinar, but government contracting, the possibilities are endless, tribal friends. I wanted to give a few examples of what we've done and are still doing with some of the contracts we have, but maybe we can talk about that at another session.
Yeah, great. And I see Sherry popped the Heart of the Monster, a Nez Perce creation story video link produced by Visit Idaho in partnership with Nez Perce Tourism. So be sure to check that out. I love all of our stories. Heart of the Monster, of course, being one of my favorites to tell. Thanks
Okay, Jaslyn and Ben, sorry, real quick. I love you guys. I hope you're still on. I hope to see you both very soon. I miss you. Thank you.
So quickly, as a reminder, Go International is in about a month in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you can register today at bit.ly/Go International 2023, or you can just find more information at aianta.org/Go International.
Love you all. Thank you for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you for joining us. And if you can't make Go International, of course, AIANTA, we have so much to offer. Please save the date for our 25th annual American Indian Tourism Conference, which will not disappoint. It is October 2nd through the 5th. Put it into your calendars. Calendar invites I live on, and it'll take place at Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant, Oklahoma. Registration is coming soon, but visit our website, aianta.org, to learn more about all of our program offerings across education, visitor outreach, and all the things that we're offering to our members. We are here for each of you, so please don't hesitate to reach out. And from the visitor outreach program, I'm absolutely here to help you go international. So we will see you in April in New Mexico. Thank you all. Katsiayo.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, I miss you, sister. Thank you, Sherry, for everything.
And now I want to
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. How'd it go? Do you guys think it went